Welcome to Peninsula Seniors Out and About. We're here in San Pedro for the Rail Festival. I'm here with Fengler. He's going to explain what we have behind us here, the 3751 steam engine.
All right, this is a 1927 steam locomotive of the 484 wheel configuration. It served on the Santa Fe Railway from about 1927 until the mid-50s roughly, when it was retired and placed on display at a park in San Bernardino next to the train station there. Our organization was formed in 1981. We're the San Bernardino Railroad Historical Society. We restored this engine mostly from the time period of 1985 until 1991, when it was made fully operational. We've had it out on the road for a number of trips since its restoration, including a trip to Bakersfield, a trip to Sacramento, to the Grand Canyon, and as far east as Chicago. The locomotive was designed for passenger service. It hauled trains such as the Grand Canyon Limited and the Chief, and it was the first engine to haul a named passenger train out of Union Station when it was built in 1939. It's presently on the National Register of Historical Places, and I'm going to give you a quick tour of some of the components of the locomotive. We're standing here on the front or pilot of the 3751 steam locomotive. Immediately to my right is an air pump that's for our air brake system, and we have a water pump just to the right. Above that, of course, we have the headlight and the bell. We're down here in San Pedro for a number of things this week. We have our educational outreach program field trip for 5th grade students, where we teach them railroad safety in cooperation with Operation Lifesaver, as well as some history. We have math and science for them, and of course they get to take a quick look at the steam locomotive and the vintage passenger cars that are part of the train. We're also participating at the Ports of Los Angeles 100th Anniversary Rail Festival, their Centennial Rail Festival. The Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach owes quite a bit to the railroads. Phineas Banning in the late 1800s was a real pioneer for pushing the railroad from Los Angeles to connect to the harbor and Wilmington, and that helped establish the port as one of the nation's busiest. As we travel back along the locomotive, we see the power end of the engine. This is the piston. It's 30 inches in diameter, and combined with the piston on the other side, it can exert up to about 3,700 horsepower at the coupler. That's enough to haul a 13-car train at about 90 miles an hour. The engine's fastest recorded speed was 103 miles an hour. We're going to continue traveling back, and we're going to look at some of the valve gear. This regulates how the steam is admitted and exhausted from the cylinders as it travels down the road. The locomotive was built in 1927 for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway, which is now part of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway, or BNSF Railway. It was designed mostly for high-speed passenger service and hauled famous trains such as the Chief or the Grand Canyon Limited. Most of its service was between Kansas City and Los Angeles, but it did end its career in the 1950s hauling the train from Los Angeles to San Diego. The cylindrical section up top is the main boiler courses, where there's a large volume of water that's being preheated to be made into steam. Down below you can see the large driving wheels. I'm 6'1" tall, and they're actually taller than me. They're 80 inches in diameter, and they're large to keep the rotational speed down for high-speed service. This engine, when it was running, and even today, we can do 90 miles an hour with a passenger train, and we actually have record of the engine doing as fast as 103 miles an hour back when it was in service. As we move forward, you can see the rods that connect the main driving wheels, these large wheels, together to turn them as they travel down the tracks. This rectangular section to my right is the firebox. This is where obviously the fire that makes the steam is contained. It can get up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and quite hot, obviously, and can make a lot of power for the train. Back in the days of steam, not only did it provide power for moving the train, but it also supplied steam for heating and cooling of the passenger cars. We're in the cab of the steam locomotive looking at the fireman's control. There were two people that ran the steam locomotive, the fireman and the engineer, and they had to work as a team to get the engine to perform properly. The fireman, of course, controlled the amount of water and the amount of fuel going into the locomotive to keep the steam pressure at the proper level and make sure that there was enough steam volume to power the train for any given set of track conditions. As we pan to the center, you can see the steam pressure gauge here, and note that there is steam pressure in the boiler. We have water glasses up top so that the fireman and the engineer can keep track of the water level in the boiler. The door in the center here is obviously the fire door. That's how we keep an eye on what's going on with the fire. And the business end of the train for making it go is over here on the engineer's side. I'm now sitting in the engineer's seat, and I'm going to explain some of the engineer's controls. He's responsible for making sure the locomotive moves down the track at the proper speed, and the first control for that is the throttle. This large lever connects to a valve up front that admits steam to the pistons, making the wheels turn. If he needs to stop the train, he has the brake system right here. The top one is called the independent, and it's for the locomotive only. The bottom one is called the automatic, and it's for the train itself. Usually use the train to do most of the braking rather than the locomotive, because the train itself in total is heavier than the locomotive. The locomotive was restored to its 1941 appearance, and the only deviation from that are these two radios, which allow us to communicate with the dispatchers in a modern railroad environment. We can remove these when we're on a static display so the engine reverts to its historic appearance. Just like in a car, the engine has sort of a stick shift. This is the reverse lever. It allows the engine to go forward and backward. You can regulate its position to regulate the speed. Just like shifting, you have one position for starting, and as you pick up speed, you change the position to make better use of the steam, make more efficient use of the steam, and save on fuel and water. Should the rails get slippery, like today it's a slightly rainy day, we have sand that we can put down to get a little more traction. Of course, the engineer had the fun part. He's got the whistle under his control, and the fireman had the bell. The engineer's warning device was the whistle, and it's kind of fun because a lot of the engineers developed their own style for blowing the whistle. That, of course, warned people ahead that the train was coming and had signals to the train crews so they would know what's going on with the engine. To keep track of his speed, the engineer, of course, had a speedometer at his disposal. Each section of track had a particular speed limit, and since this engine was in passenger service, it had a speed recording device. There's actually a paper roll at the top of this so that officials could later on check to see if he was doing the right speed at the right time. The valve handles at the top of the locomotive cab here are mostly shut-off valves. All the air pumps, our electric generator is all steam-driven, so we need to be able to shut them off if something fails or if we're taking the engine out of service. So we can just simply reach out and close those valves and work on them or whatever we need to do.
I have been very privileged. I got to ride in the cab going over the Tehachapi Loop and everything, and it is just fantastic. If you're standing by the track, I'd say 30, 40 feet back, and this engine goes by at about 40 miles an hour, the ground will just vibrate. Well, it should, because this thing weighs, loaded and everything with the water and oil and everything, it will weigh 874,000 pounds. That is a lot of weight to be there. What intrigues me most about it is the size of it, the weight, and the color. We as a group always say, if it isn't black, it isn't beautiful. Well, that isn't necessarily so with locomotives out there, because they have some beautiful looking ones that are not black, and they are beautiful too.
I'm here with Stan Garner, the owner of the Pony Express car that we're in. Stan, what's going on here today?
Well, we've been using this car as a classroom for the 5th grade students that have been coming through to get a program of learning about Operation Lifesaver, which is a very important safety program for the kids to realize that it's dangerous to play around railroad tracks. We don't want kids getting out there playing chicken with the train or anything like that. We've got qualified Operation Lifesaver presenters who give the program. We also have members of the Railroad Locomotive Society that owns the 3751 steam engine, that give a presentation on railroading today and what it is and what it does, and on railroad history and how it came to be and why it is what it is today. And then we have tours of the other cars that are back here so that they can see different types of railroading. They've got, this is a classroom car, party car, general purpose car, and then we have an Amtrak business class dining car from the Surfliner train set, and then we have a 1949 lounge car, and then a 1950 sleeping car, and a private car.
How did you get into trains?
I just always liked trains, but Buddy and I bought a little steam engine in 1967, and one thing led to another, and I've ended up owning a railroad or two, and bought this car in 1997, refurbished it, and turned it into what you see here, and chartered out as private cars. I also supply trains to the film industry. I'm a train coordinator for the film industry.
Okay, well, let's see what we have here.
Okay.
Okay, can you tell me what we're looking at here?
We're looking at a drawing of a locomotive that my original partners and I bought from 20th Century Fox in 1972. It was built in 1888 for the Denver and Fort Worth Railroad, and Fox used it in the movie Jesse James in 1939 with Tyrone Power. Movie studios sold off most of their railroad equipment in the early 70s, 1970 to 72, and we were just dumb enough to buy this stuff and start fixing it up for an excursion railroad operation, and in the process we ended up back in the movie business, and this is an excursion we did on the Sierra Railroad in 1979. Sierra Railroad's up in Central California in the gold country. This is a painting by Patrick Carnahan from Sonora, California. There's another excursion we did on the Sierra Railroad, 1979, November of 1979. Our locomotive number 8, which we had lettered as Sierra, and then Sierra's number 3, which is their original locomotive, and then a boxcar, and then we actually had 5 cars behind that, dating as far back as 1869, all of which we had bought from the movie studios and refurbished and restored. The number 8 and the V&T cars that we had are all at the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Carson City now.
How did the Pony Express get this way?
Well, that's a good question. It started life as a horse car. Bare metal walls and grated floors, and these overhead bars are for securing horses and portable stalls too. The interior is a design concept based on an 1872 Virginia and Truckee Railroad coach that we used to own that's now at Carson City, Nevada. And I wanted something that was warm and inviting, but had a unique character to it. And the 1872 architecture is just kind of neat. The interior paneling is ash, and the bar is an old, it came from an old house, I suspect. It's a backboard. And so we have a nice place where you can prepare food or drink, and we have a dance floor, we have a place for a sound system, we have live music on the car on occasion. We use it as a classroom, we use it as a dining room. I can seat 40 people at tables. I've done weddings in the car. It's just a gathering place for up to 40, 45 people to have a good time on a trip to San Diego or up to San Luis Obispo or anywhere else we want to go in the country. We hook up with other cars and travel to different destinations like the Grand Canyon or Santa Fe.
Can you tell me about what you have on there?
What I have on is basically an outfit that I wore for the TV series Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. As part of the providing trains to the movie industry, I've done a lot of work with the film industry over the years, and I was a regular conductor on the Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman show for 3 seasons. And this is the kind of outfit they had me dressed up in, so it goes with the interior of the car from the 1870s, so this is what I wear when I'm on the car.
We're standing aboard an Amtrak Horizon Dinette car. This style of car has both a small seating area and also a dining counter and tables at the other end. It forms an appropriate venue for our Modern Railroads class for the students, and it is very useful to the program as it helps us to board children because it has stairways on each end. This is the lunch counter of the Amtrak Horizon coach. You can purchase snack food or playing cards or any number of items to make your train trip more pleasant when you're on an Amtrak train. This serves as kind of a crew staging area for our teaching staff during the program. We are in the dining area of the Amtrak Horizon coach. This is actually where we host our modern railroads class. Again, it's appropriate venue for that type of class. And you can see by the tables here that if this was in service, this is where you could come and have a quick hamburger or a bite to eat. When we use this as a classroom, we put up a projection screen and use PowerPoint to do a slideshow for the students with the presentation material, which includes math problems. The folks behind me are some of our hardworking, all-volunteer teaching staff. Some are credentialed teachers. Others come out of our internal training program for staff. They help escort the students around or teach the various classes. We're now aboard the Overland Trail. This is a privately owned car, a lounge barbershop, and I'm actually in the barber chair. This is the only working barbershop on rails left in the United States. A very unique car. And Bill and Debbie Hattrick, the owners of the car, along with Stan Garner, who you talked to earlier on the Pony Express, Doug Spinn, who owns the Pacific Sands, and Norm Orfall, who owns the Tioga Pass, are very generous in allowing us to use their cars as classrooms for our program. This particular car is a good setting because of its Art Deco interior and 1949 vintage for our history lesson. So if you're interested in riding the rails in style in a lounge and getting your hair cut, this is the place to be. I'm here at the bar in the Overland Trail, which is the setting for our history class for the students. Back in service, this would have been the place to come after a meal and grab a cocktail or maybe grab some playing cards to relax before you turned in for the evening. The Art Deco interior is a wonderful historical look to show the students and appropriate for our history class. The owners, when this goes out on Amtrak trains, do a wonderful job of not only beverage service but also food service to make travel comfortable for their guests. Folks can come and charter the car, or this particular car has some fun events it does, including a Pearl Harbor tribute trip in December 7th or 8th, usually each year, when some of the Pearl Harbor survivors are aboard and folks dress in period uniform to help tell the story of Pearl Harbor and capture some of those memories for future generations to enjoy. We're now having a seat in the comfortable lounge section of the Overland Trail. You can see some of the wonderful furniture pieces here that really capture the Art Deco look. Now when the students are here, they're sitting in these seats, and the murals behind me disappear underneath the projection screen so we can present our slideshow of the history of railroads and how the United States grew in conjunction with the railroads. We're in the Pacific Sands. It's known as a 10-6 sleeper because it had 10 roomettes, which were for single travelers, or 6 bedroom compartments, which could have 2 or more guests in it. Depending on your budget and the number of people in your party, you had lots of options for sleeping on the train. Right now, you're looking at one of the 10 roomettes on the car. If you were a single business traveler, this would be probably the compartment you would have if you wanted to take a step up from a regular coach class. Believe it or not, this little tight space has a bed that folds out of the wall. It has its own commode. It has a fold-down sink and a little shoe locker and clothes closet. All the things you would need if you're a business traveler going to a nearby town for a business meeting. Despite the small size of the compartments, they were pretty well equipped. They had individualized air conditioning controls, lights, of course, and a porter call button. Just like in the finest hotels, if you needed help with a glass of milk in the middle of the night or some extra bedding, you could call the porter. One was assigned to each car, and the porter would help you out. Looking at the roomette configured for nighttime use, you can see it's a nice cozy little bunk, personalized and individualized. I've personally spent a night on this particular car in one of these roomettes, and it's quite cozy, especially on a rainy night like today. As I mentioned earlier, if you had a larger group, like say you were traveling with a family, you could get a larger sleeping compartment. This is one of the 6 double berth sections on the Pacific Sands, and it's actually combined. This is actually 2 sections combined together, and as you'll see in just a minute, this would sleep 4 people. So when it was time to bunk down for the night, the compartment we just saw a moment ago with chairs would turn into a nice sleeping compartment with bunk beds, as we tell the kids, with the help of the porter, who would fold these beds out of various corners of the rooms and put the pillows and the blankets out, and you'd be ready to bunk down for the night. If you were traveling with your family and you wanted just a little more privacy than you would get in the roomettes, you had an individualized bathroom compartment with a commode and, again, a fold-down sink and, of course, a mirror and everything you'd need to get ready for the night. The Tioga Pass. This formerly served as a business car for the Canadian National Railway. If you were a VIP or a railroad official, like the president of the railroad, this would be the way you would tour the line, possibly to show a prospective shipper where he could locate his new plant. This is the kitchen area, and although it's quite small, it's well equipped with stove, refrigerator, and sink, storage lockers for food and dishes. And there would be a staff on board to take care of the railroad officials or their guests. As we like to tell the children, the Tioga Pass has all the comforts of home. We're, of course, in the dining room, where it would be normally set with a fancy china and silverware for an elegant meal. The Tioga Pass is equipped with a shared bathroom with a shower. The other cars do have showers as well, but this was built in when it served on the railroad. If the railroad officials were out for several days, they could have all the comforts of home and have a shower close at hand rather than sharing with 10 to 16 other guests as you would on a normal sleeper. The sink was inside the room itself and fixed in place. In addition to a sink, you had a nightstand as well to stow your clothes for your journey. Room on the Tioga Pass, actually a nice observation lounge with large windows to watch the train tracks go by and the scenery. This would be where the railroad officials would spend most of their time on an inspection tour. My name is Wolf Fengler. I'm on the board of directors of the San Bernardino Railroad Historical Society. We're the organization that restored this locomotive and put together the educational program that's taking place this week, leading up to the Port of Los Angeles Centennial Rail Festival. It takes a lot of money to obviously restore the locomotive. We invested over $1 million in the restoration, and of course with insurance fees and fuel costs, it still takes a lot of money to operate this engine so that the children can experience the sights and sounds of yesteryear, which is best done with an operating steam locomotive. It's a much different experience when you can feel the heat off of the jacket of the boiler and see the steam wisping out and hear the whistle blow. Much more exciting for the kids than seeing something static in a park.
Oh, there's the other one.
Bye-bye.
Wait. Thanks. This has been Peninsula Seniors Out and About. I'm Betty Wheaton, and I'm here with
Wolf Fengler of the San Bernardino Railroad Historical Society. Thanks for visiting our educational outreach program Field Trip Train, which is down here for the Port of Los Angeles Centennial Rail Festival.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.